All righty. It is 4:31 and we have quorum. We'll call the Planning Commission meeting on June 17th to order. I am Sam Rockwell, and Service President of the Commission. I am joined by Commissioners Ellison, Brown, Coleman, Sweezy, and Olson. Our first item of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Our next item of business is to organize the agenda for today. If you are here to testify on an item, against an item, or to change staff recommendation, please note that when we call out the project. Otherwise, the item will be placed onto the consent agenda. Item number 1 is the Capri Theater expansion at 2027, 2029, and 2033 West Broadway, and a variety of intersecting addresses. Preliminary and final plat motion. Is there anyone here to speak on that item? Hearing none, we'll place that on the consent agenda. Item number 2 are the Amp House Apartments at 3255 Garfield Avenue South in Ward 8. A variety of applications there, and I'll note that the conditional use permit application should read 31 feet, not 32 feet in item A. Is there anyone here to testify on that item? Seeing none, we'll place that on consent. Item number 3, LH Beard, 4418 to 4422 Beard Avenue South in Ward 13. Is anybody here to testify on a variety of applications on that item? I see a couple of hands there. We'll place item 3 on our discussion agenda. Item number 4 is 1115 5th Street Southeast in Ward 3. A variety of applications there. Anybody here to speak on item number 4? Seeing none, we'll place that on consent. And item number 5 is 28th and Garfield Apartments at 601 and 609 28th Street West in Ward 10. A number of applications for that apartment building. Anybody here to testify about item number 5? Seeing none, we'll place that item on consent. So the agenda as amended is items 1, 2, 4, and 5 on the consent agenda, and we'll discuss item 3. Could I have a motion to approve that agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And motion carries. All right. We will now move on to our public hearing. Our Vice President of the Commission is not here, so I'll give a quick update on the Committee of the Whole consent agenda items from June 6th. There was a approval of staff report on the 14th and Central Tax Increment Financing Plan, approval of location and design review for 2020 to 2024 capital improvement projects. There was approval of a land sale for right-of-way adjacent to 2113 Cedar Avenue South, approval of a land sale at 2635 Colfax Avenue North, and approval of land sales at 610 34th Avenue North, 3723 Aldrich Avenue North, 1326 Emerson Avenue North, 2822 Emerson Avenue North, 2818 Girard Avenue North, 2003 Hillside Avenue North, 1131 James Avenue North, 3115 Russell Avenue North, and 810 Thomas Avenue North. I will now open the public hearing on the consent agenda items, if anyone is here to speak on those. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing on the consent agenda items. Commissioners, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to our discussion items. Item number 3, the LH Beard 4418 4422 Beard Avenue South in Ward 13 is up. And we have a staff report by Shayna.
Sam,
Thank you very much.
hold on. Did you get a second and vote on the cow,
On which?
the cow items?
Yes, I'm not sure who the second was. Amy. Kim was the second.
Thank you, President Rockwell. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Shanna Sether, planner assigned to the project for item number 3, LH Beard, located at 4418 and 4422 Beard Avenue South. Subject property is about 14,817 square feet. The proposed use is a new construction of a 42-unit multiple family dwelling. The subject property is zoned R5 multiple family. And the proposed project replaced 2 low-density structures with the single multiple family dwelling. The applicant is before you today requesting site plan review for their land use application. The proposed building is 4 stories in height, has 1 level of underground parking, 42 units on the above floors. Staff notes 2 areas for alternative compliance listed on page 10 of the staff report. Staff is recommending that the applicant comply with those 2 outstanding provisions. First is that the west elevation exceeds the amount of fiber cement board as proposed is over 30%. Staff is recommending the applicant make minor alterations to that elevation to make it consistent with the exterior material standards. And then also that the exterior materials are similar in appearance to the sides and rear. We have exterior materials that are absent on the rear elevation, brick, for example. So staff is recommending less fiber cement, again, on that rear elevation, and that staff is recommending alternative compliance be granted to providing brick on that rear elevation. So staff has noted conditions 1 through 7 on pages 10 and 11 of the staff report. Since the staff report was published, we received a letter from there we are. A letter from the Linden Hills Neighborhood Council stating that they would prefer to see that 4th floor step back to be 10 feet from the front facade of the 3rd floor. So I've just taken the 4th floor plan to show the area or the portion of the 4th floor. I'll zoom in here in just a moment so we can see it a little more clearly. That would be removed in order to comply. Now this is, again, in the Linden Hills small area plan. This is not a zoning code provision. So if we zoom in to the 4th floor, it's approximately this yellow portion of Unit K. So it would make for a very long and narrow unit above. I spoke with the applicant and their architect briefly this afternoon, and they're prepared with some feedback related to whether or not this is a feasible option for them. But with that, I can take any questions.
Commissioners, are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Shanna. I will open the public hearing on this. Anybody wishing to testify, please come to the stand, state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name's Jeff Kana. I live at 4437 Beard Avenue South, which is across the street from the proposed development. If any of you were, I don't think any of you were, but if you were in the Linden Hills zoning meeting last week, you would have seen and felt the anger, sadness, and disapproval of this project in the room from the neighborhood. I know this project is meeting the zoning requirements and building code, so there's not much we can do other than to tell you again how much we disapprove of this project. Any view of the plans, some of the simple renderings that they had shows that this building is of a much bigger scale than anything else in the neighborhood. I understand that it's zoned R5. I'm not sure how or when that happened, but that doesn't make it right to build a building of this scale. I want to be clear, I'm not opposed to apartment buildings going on this site. I understand we're trying to develop density in this city. People have to live places. I know in Linden Hills, we're trying and struggling with a variety of housing options so people can afford to live in the neighborhood or don't have to leave the neighborhood when they can no longer afford a house. But it needs to be done at a scale that's respectful of the surroundings and the character of the neighborhood. Do I have a time limit, by the way?
You do not. Just keep your
Thank you, sir.
testimony on point. Thank you.
Shayna referenced the Linden Hills Small Area Plan. Again, a document I know is not legally binding, but several times in that document, it references this desire to build to not to the maximum of what zoning allows, but to be respectful of the surrounding scale and character of the neighborhood, which I know design and aesthetics are a matter of opinion, but the eye test of any of those renderings just shows the massive scale of this project. Just for reference, the apartment building next door, the Allegro Apartments, takes up 6 city lots, single-family housing lots, has approximately 60 units, I believe. I haven't been able to confirm that from their management. This building is 2 lots and squeezing in 42 units. Again, this is a matter of scale, not use. Part of the concern from the neighborhood that comes with that scale and density is the amount of cars that will come with this. The plans they showed at the meeting last week showed 22 parking stalls for 42 units. If you take a stroll down our street on an average morning or evening, you'll see that there's hardly any parking spots. Several of the single-family residences across the street, on my side of the street, don't have driveways. We don't have an alley, so we have to park on the street. On a Saturday or Sunday morning, if you take a stroll from the business traffic, you'll see that there's definitely hardly any room for parking, to the point that it's a bit of a public nuisance with the congestion, people parking illegally. I'm not implying that the apartment people would park illegally, because the current apartments seem to be respectful, and I would expect the same of this, but there's simply not room for that many more cars. At the meeting, the developer and architect implied that they were able to get a reduction in parking requirements due to the proximity to transit. I was hoping to clarify today, or perhaps I can submit as a question as part of the process of how they qualified for that. I know the city amendment to Title 20, Chapter 541 states that for a dwelling unit, 30 to 50 dwelling units, which we're talking about here, you can get a 100% reduction in the parking requirements if you are within 1/4 mile of a bus transit stop with midday service headways between 15 minutes or less. I don't know if the developer and architect submitted documentation that they are within a 1/4 mile. I know Google is not the most accurate thing in the world, but it is borderline 1/4 mile, and I would like to see if they've documented within walking distance to the bus stops. There's a bus stop at France Avenue and Sunnyside Avenue, or the other direction at 44th Street and Xerxes Avenue South. But I would guess the walking distance is slightly over 1/4 mile for those. And regardless, a quick check of the Route 6 schedule shows that buses come only 20 minutes apart at those stops during midday, and then wouldn't qualify for the reduction. Another question I had on the density, and again, I know there's a myriad of city ordinances and amendments, but from what I was able to find, they are limited to a floor area ratio of 2.0, and the plans that were showed last week had a floor area ratio of 2.118, I believe. So I was wondering if, as part of this, if somebody could tell me where they get the exemption to be higher than that allowable ratio. Again, all these things come down to a question of appropriate density, whether they actually meet city zoning or not, what is appropriate for our neighborhood and our city. The last issue I wanted to bring up was affordability. In the small area plan for Linden Hills, Again, there was a statement, the desire to develop different types of housing and a variety of housing so different people of different ages and abilities and incomes can access the neighborhood. The smallest unit in this building is approximately 450 feet, 480 feet. I don't remember the exact number. Either way, it was stated at the meeting last week that the lowest rent would be $1,500 a month. That's a pretty hefty rent for 450 square feet efficiency apartment if you're somebody of lower income, or even if an elderly couple that can no longer afford or able to keep up their house but wants to stay in the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to testify, please come to the stand. State your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Rosemary Tomsha-Scholes. I live at 4425. The apartment's going to be right across the street from me. I will lose all my sunlight. They mentioned that they were going to have the driveway going out onto 44th or onto Beard Street, which would really congest everything. I know that our neighbors across from us, right next door to us, their driveway, if anybody comes in at night, the lights are going to be reflecting in their door into their house. And as Jeff said, that we're not opposed to having apartments there. We opposed to how many apartments there are there. It would be a very 4 stories when everything else is only 3 stories, and you have 2 really nice brownstones that only have 5 apartments in each one. You know, the Allegro, I think, only has 40 apartments, and now you're putting in 42 in a 2-lot area. I just find that very extreme. But as Jeff said, we're not opposed to having apartments in there. It's just the size of the apartments and how many people they want to stick in there. Because our street is packed already because of the Turtle Bread Company and Penny's Coffee Shop. They all come on 44th or on Beard Street because nobody wants to cross the 4 stop signs going on 44th because it's dangerous. People do not stop. So they all park on 44 or on Beard Street. And when we go out, it's really, and some of them will park in somebody's driveway. I mean, in front of the driveway. So then if you have an emergency and you want to get out, you can't because they're having coffee. I don't have a garage. We don't have an alleyway. So we are forced to be in the street. And when they say 42 apartments, 22, you know that 42 apartments is not going to be 42 people. It'll probably be doubled. And we just can't afford to have that many people in our area. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you very much. Next testifier, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Luann Rockman. I live at 4342 Abbott Avenue South in Linden Hills. Your work in planning for the city of Minneapolis is difficult, and many of us come to this podium as whiners and NIMBY people. It is a challenge to deal with the negativity, as most are passionate about their issues, and I commend you. What I would like to do today is highlight and expand your thinking a bit. I understand that this architect and developer have complied with city codes. Their goal is profit, good old American profit, and good for them. But let's take a peek in the final, in the final analysis. I don't know if I know how to use this. Can you see that?
We should be able to turn that on remotely.
Yeah.
There you go.
That is, they have suggested balconies. They've suggested balconies on this building, and that's what you would look into exactly, is somebody else's apartment and their air conditioner, and it would be over a driveway where there's exhaust coming through. Please understand that this new endeavor is not contributing to the neighborhood except in parking problems. It could bring 50 or more cars onto a street, which is 3 blocks from Southwest High School. Think of parked cars on the street. Think of the traffic after and before athletic games, especially on the part of visiting teams and their families. Think of employees and businesses who work on 44th Street. Think of the snow and the snow removal. Good grief, Charlie Brown, where does everybody park? The city of Minneapolis is so slow in clearing snow. I'm lucky that I have a garage behind my home. I watch my neighbors scuttle about moving their cars on the designated days. People and/or cars, as the woman previously stated, they barely stop at the intersection of Beard and 44th. The police department could make some real big bucks here. It's very dangerous. A parking ramp with a facade of a house or a mural on the building would have solved a few problems. That would be so much more effective for the neighborhood. You might have been solving our problem instead of adding to them. With an entrance from the alley and an exit on Beard, residents and customers would benefit alike and be safe. Parking ramps can be so much more today and blend into the neighborhood. My spouse designed a bar and dance place inside a parking ramp in Atlanta, Georgia, a few years ago. It was temporary. Green spaces on the rooftop with a view are enticing, especially on 4th of July celebrations. It would create the option of a local park and a sculpture garden. We came here to Linden Hills because of the appeal. We will probably leave, like the gentleman previously mentioned, because of the taxes and other city issues. We are preparing our house now, and there's a lot of construction going on. I know that we have lost this battle, and you will allow this building, but please think creatively in the future. Think thoughtfully about traffic and outside the plain box apartment buildings. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to testify? Please state your name and address for the record.
Peter Samuelson, 4449 Beard Avenue South. I live right across from the Allegro Apartments, and that apartment adds a lot to our neighborhood. It's wonderful. It's a good size. It's appropriate. This apartment building proposal is too big, too many residents. And as has been previously stated, we have myriad parking problems on Beard Avenue due to the small business district on 44th and Beard with Penny's and Turtle Bread, very popular places where people park on our street. One safety issue that may not have been expressed is Beard terminates in 2 blocks, just a block and a half from our 45th and Beard, at 46th and a half into Southwest High School. And there are many, dozens of children riding their bikes on Beard and walking to school at great peril if we have a parking ramp from an apartment that houses 42 people emptying onto Beard. So I also wonder about the number. That is simply too many apartments there, and the problems that, especially parking, will ensue. I also would like to speak to affordability. We do need dense housing, and I'm not opposed to the apartment per se, but lots of research shows that if we put people from low income into higher income neighborhoods, our neighborhood doesn't go down. Their standard of living, and for generations, goes up. And so I would like to see at least a 20% designated low-income housing for this apartment. And I oppose the number. I would like to see it reduced, and the emptying out into Beard Street. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Heidi Griesbach, and I live at 4429 Beard Avenue South. We live directly across from the proposed development, and we are fortunate to have a driveway. Many of our neighbors don't on the street and do have to find on-street parking. I am not going to rehearse many of the other things that were already said. I agree with everything that has already been said, the issues. Us in particular, though, the proposed driveway that would be coming out of this building would practically directly be in front of our driveway. And right now, with the congestion, we can barely get out, with the cars and the traffic. It's a lot of times, we get honked at, and it's very congested, and it's very worrisome to think that now we're going to have a driveway that's going to meet up with ours and with cars constantly in and out. So I would ask you to please reconsider this project. And as my neighbors mentioned, none of us on the street are against multifamily dwellings. We have a wonderful national night out in August, and we gather with all of the residents that are already in the multifamily units, and we have a great time, and we would welcome this development, but on a much smaller scale. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else wishing to testify? Does the applicant wish to add anything to the discussion? Come on up. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Alex Giese. My address is 5605 Tracy Avenue, Edina, Minnesota, although I'm a former resident of Linden Hills. Just a few comments, and then we'll take questions. I'm here with Pete Keeley and Selena Nelson from Collage Architects as well, so happy to answer any questions. But just a few things. With respect to the Linden Hills Small Area Plan, that was consulted, and we are still looking at it in terms of the 10-foot setback on the fourth floor. However, I just want to point out that this particular project, the required front yard setback typically for R5 is 15 feet. We're 26 feet setback on one side and 28 on the other in the front, so we are set back considerably from the public right-of-way. Parking, that was in Shanna. I don't know if you want to comment on this too, but staff and the architects looked at parking, and so we did study that, and that's how we determined that there was in fact the parking bonus. So that was looked at carefully. So there is actually no parking requirement here, where we're offering 22 underground structured parking stalls at a considerable cost, because we do understand that parking can be a challenge in this neighborhood. And so that leads into the FAR question. There is a 20% FAR bonus for structured parking, and so that's how we went from 2.0 to actually we're allowed 2.4 here, and we're far under that. And then just a few things in terms of what I feel that this building will contribute to the neighborhood. One, there was talk about affordability. There are a lot of folks actually in this city and outside the city who seek to move into the city, who are looking for really nice new apartment buildings to live in with amenities and that are that consider $1,500 a month, for example, for a nice one-bedroom unit to be affordable, not in the sense not Section 8 sense, but accessible, I should say. And so I do feel like that is an offering that we can be proud of, and that will bring diversity, both socioeconomic and demographic, to the neighborhood. I think it's great. This building will be great for businesses. Penny's and Turtlebread were referenced. It'd be great to have a place where some of the employees of those businesses can actually live and walk to work rather than have to drive or bus into the neighborhood to do their jobs. So that's something that we feel that we're bringing with this project. And then finally, it's great for the city overall because it contributes to the tax base in a meaningful way. So I think we are adding a significant value with this project. Happy to take some questions if there are any.
Commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Coleman.
I appreciate your responses so far, and I want to thank the testifiers from the neighborhood that with your creative suggestions and your well-stated concerns. One of the concerns that was stated that I don't think you addressed directly was the Route 6 and its frequency being more than 15 minutes. I don't know what the facts are, but just wanted to see if you had a response to that.
Yeah, there's 2 bus routes, right? Yeah, we have the bus route and the frequency here, actually, in this diagram. Happy to present it.
If you can put it on the, if it's relevant to look at, putting it on there and we can take a look at it. Thanks.
So this is Route 6 here. The midday service is every 10 to 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Koga.
Thank you. I heard from some folks some concern about the driveway and lights coming in and out. Is there any consideration of removing all of the parking? And what would you have any concerns about doing that?
For removing all the parking and having no parking at all? We hadn't considered that, and no, frankly, I mean, I think it's important to have some level of parking. I think, 10 years from now, we might be, I think we're moving towards that. There are a lot of people who are not driving cars these days, and I think that, that's just going to continue as a trend. And so at some point in time, I feel like this could be a building where no one has cars. But I thought that about a 1 to 2 mix made sense, and so that's kind of where we landed.
Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And commissioners, any discussion or motions to start us off? We are looking at one application for site plan review with several stated conditions. 7. Commissioner Brown.
And I'll move approval of item A, the site plan review with the 7 stated conditions.
Is there a second?
Second.
There are seconds. We have a motion and a second for approval of item A, site plan review with the 7 stated conditions. Commissioners, is there any discussion?
And I'll just add, in this case, I feel this is pretty straightforward in that there's really only one application here. There are no variance requests. The project meets the requirements of the R5 zoning district. There's really even only one alternative compliance consideration, which relates to distribution of exterior materials, so something that's fairly minor. I wouldn't be comfortable recommending that they set the 4th floor of the building back any further. I think that's a consideration if there's a conditional use permit for height or something where there's some additional review. I think in this case the building is set back adequately and as I said, really meets all of the dimensional requirements of the R5 district.
Very good. Commissioners, any other discussion? Commissioner Sweezy.
Thank you, President Rockwell. Yeah, I agree with what Commissioner Brown has said, and I am sympathetic to what the neighbors said. And you heard just a little bit in the discussion up here, if there's going to be parking, there will be headlights. Otherwise, the alternative would be there would be no parking, and I've heard what you had to say about that. I will say, and this is something we see so many projects come through that have the request for variances because they don't fit within the zoning that they have and everything. And I think this is a nice change of pace for us actually to see one that requires only one approval, which is the site plan review. And if I were sitting where you are, I'm not sure that would make any difference to me. But I think it's important in the larger context because this kind of thing is happening in most desirable neighborhoods in the city. And this one actually seems to fit, as Commissioner Brown has said, the requirements for the spot. And I don't say that to diminish what you've stated here, but these are the kind of trade-offs that we look at when we review these projects. So obviously I'll be supporting the motion to approve this one, and again, I'm grateful to see a project with no requests for variances.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, any other discussion? With that, we have a motion to approve site plan review. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We have 7 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion carries. That concludes our item number 3 and concludes the public hearing. Kimberly, are there any updates from staff?
I will provide one staffing update because I don't think you've seen them here yet. Well, I guess I have 2. We've had some opportunities for internal promotions. So Andrew Friends has been promoted to senior planner in land use design and preservation, and you'll start seeing him here, I think maybe the next cycle. And then Andrew Liska, who had been in land use design and preservation, has promoted to senior planner in zoning. So you'll be seeing him again for a while, but he'll be transferring back to that team and primarily staffing the Board of Adjustment. And then we're in the process of hiring 2 new city planners. So we'll introduce those folks to you once they're on board.
Very good. Thank you very much. And with that, we will close the public hearing. Meeting adjourned.